Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
at the bottom.
All right, good evening, all. Thanks for joining us for the March 11th, 2024 edition of the Town of Garner Planning Commission. Happy that you're all here to join us. Call this meeting to order. Go ahead and do a roll call, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll call the roll. Gina Avent.
Here.
John Blasco.
Here.
Ralph Carson.
Here.
Jefferson. Here. Sheehan Hodges. Sherry Phillips. Michael Voiland.
Here.
That's 5 members present.
A quorum? All right, we can carry on. Any volunteers for a invocation or,
Do that.
perfect, thank you.
Today, we will be considering a proposal to rezone a property for a land use change to be made in the future. It's certainly not the first time we've been asked to review a rezoning request, and it assuredly will not be the last. What's interesting about rezoning requests is how much they rely on good faith and trust. Almost always, they come before property owners at neighborhood meetings or the town council or this board without much detail regarding what the final build-out will look like or how it will function in serving the community around it. And so the town and neighbors are left to wonder about what the changes in visual appearance, environment, traffic flow, noise levels, public safety, and other aspects might be should the request be approved. And that's where good faith and trust come in. Prospective neighbors will have to trust that the proposed change is made in good faith by the developer and that the town will give it a fair and thorough review. On the town side, it will need to presume that the developer will honor pledges and limits presented in its rezoning application, and that it will come back sometime later with detailed plans that fit within zoning request and meet environmental muster. And finally, the developing party will have to trust that it won't suddenly shift its thinking about what land uses will be encouraged and where they will be allowed. And so as we consider the rezoning request before us tonight and in future ones down the line, let's always try to remember just how much growth and development and the processes that support them depend on trust. That is, trust in the good faith efforts made by all parties involved.
All right, thank you, Mr. Boylan. Very well said. All right, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion in a second.
There's a motion on the floor to adopt the agenda. I'll call the vote. Gina Avent.
Aye.
John Blasco. Ralph Carson. Philip Jefferson. Michael Voiland. That's 5 ayes.
All right, thank you. Moving on, we have adoption of the minutes. We do have a updated version of the minutes in front of us. I believe everyone's had a chance to review. If we feel comfortable voting, is there a motion?
I'll motion that they be approved.
Second.
I'm sorry, who was the second? Of course, thank you. All right, there's a motion on the floor to adopt the presented minutes. I'll call the vote. Gina Avent.
Aye.
John Blasco.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
Aye.
Philip Jefferson.
Aye.
Michael Voiland.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. Moving on to new business, CZ 2303 309 Holman Drive.
Good evening, Planning Commission members. Hope you are all doing well tonight. Jeff Triesenberg, for those in the audience, Planning Director, will be presenting this tonight. And as noted, this is case number CZ 2303 for 309 Holman Drive. The applicant and the owners are the same, Shalom Christian Community Church, and it is a Tier 1 conditional request submitted by them to rezone their little bit more than an acre and a half from residential 4 to a neighborhood mixed use conditional district. The site is located on Holman Drive, which is just off of New Rand Road, south of US 70. Currently, Holman Drive is a dead end into, well, it's not really into the back of that property, but that is where it dead ends, and it serves the church as well as 4 homes on the opposite side. Just a reminder that Tier 1 requests do not include or require a site-specific master plan, so this one is primarily just a list of permitted uses. So as I noted, the existing zoning is residential 4, which mostly allows for suburban development of a moderate density. The current use of a religious institution is permitted within the R4 district, so it's not non-conforming or anything like that. And as you see here, we do have R4 primarily surrounding the site on all 3 sides. But behind, at the end of Holman Drive, you do have this commercial mixed use conditional, as well as some light industrial space. There is no access at this time from this area, but they are served off of US 70, and you come back through some shared driveway and access easements. Looking at our new comprehensive plan, the framework chapter, if you remember the framework, Article 2 is where we look at the activity centers. And so we have this brown community activity center. There's a yellow neighborhood activity center around downtown. And there's an employment center off to the east as depicted by the red. So this site falls kind of in between everything. Not part of a center per se, but on the edge. So New Rand Road, which runs north to south, does act as a collector that serves the adjacent neighborhoods and connects the traffic between this community activity center as well as another activity center down at Timber Drive and New Rand Road. When Timber Drive East, we did witness a reduction in traffic on New Rand Road. Once they opened that up to White Oak, there were probably less traffic using that as a cutover to US 70 to get over to White Oak. So New Rand Road does have capacity to accommodate some growth, but it does not have tremendous amounts of pedestrian or cyclist infrastructure. There's been a little bit that the town assisted with here at the north end, and there may be a little bit, again, as you get towards the southern parts as well. So the applicant has narrowed down the list of permitted uses from 37 to 3. 2 of those uses are already permitted in the existing residential 4 district. They're requesting to add daycare center. Daycare centers are not permitted in the R4 district, but would be permitted in neighborhood mixed use. And that neighborhood mixed use district is intended to, accommodate those uses which are complementary and of a nature and scale that they're really compatible with your neighboring uses. And so often we'll see things like offices, those professional services that folks in the neighborhood can access, as well as some small scale retail. Neighborhood mixed use also functions as a transition zone between residential areas and those areas that are non-residential and a little more intense of use. So we see here the excerpt from the land character map. The orange is neighborhoods. The red is retail centers. And then you have some mixed use here in purples, kind of right at the edges. In terms of review, again, 2 of those 3 uses are already permitted in R4, religious institution and community center. The other that is proposed is not unlike schools. Schools, admittedly, are probably more impactful than just a daycare center. And schools are allowed in R4. Currently, when the church is operating and has a ownership relationship with a daycare, they can operate one as a customary accessory use. So it's really a daycare existing as a primary use that is currently not allowed. And so that's, again, what they are proposing to add the ability to do by having this, requesting this rezoning. Neighborhood meeting was held on December 29th. There were 149 letters mailed for attendees. And you have all that information attached in your packet. Staff took a look at reviewing this proposal against the framework of the comprehensive plan. And so we identified 10 criteria from that growth framework. We found 8 of those to be strongly consistent, 1 modestly consistent, and 1 modestly inconsistent. So you see that broken down in the pie chart here. The transportation choices criteria was rated negatively or as that modestly inconsistent because of that absence of there being bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure to connect to today. But this is a pre-existing condition that they don't really have a whole lot of control over off their site. So while we did rate it inconsistent, we did not go for strongly inconsistent because of that. Then turning to Article 3, which is about the land use and community character. Again, we identified 8 criteria in Article 3. And this is where, admittedly, we expect there to be more shades of gray than there being a definite up and down on consistency. And so we found that of those 8, 2 could be considered modestly consistent. We came to a split decision on 5. Again, with 1 modestly inconsistent. And then we did choose to give credit for one of the bonus items because this is an infill area. It's pretty well built out, and so this would be redevelopment or some added development. And it's something that can be done without straining existing infrastructure. You don't need new roads. You don't need new water and sewer. It's all serviceable as it is today. So there's, again, that criteria spoke to not putting a strain on the existing infrastructure, and we don't believe that this does. We would note that because there were not any other written conditions other than this list of permitted uses, there wasn't a whole lot to really rate other than that. So it's not a very extensive list of things that we graded it against, but that's wouldn't be out of character for what was proposed. So our overall review, staff would note that in the absence of any strong non-supporting criteria, and the fact that it still did have a strong level of consistency with the framework portion of the plan, we would support an overall finding of consistency by this body. And our full detail of that review is found again in your staff report. So we have drafted a consistency statement based on that direction, and that is included for you should you choose to adopt it. And as noted, you kind of have 4 ways that you can take the motion, and we have highlighted the one that we drafted the statement for, and that would be a finding of it being consistent and recommending approval to the town council, but you also have the other 3 avenues there as well. And carrying that through, we also did draft a motion for you to recommend approval to the town council. So your next steps are to do your deliberations here this evening. We have representatives of the applicant here to speak on the matter as well. And should you move forward with a motion to recommend approval or denial based on consistency, This would then go back to the town council for findings of reasonableness and a decision to approve to deny. This did go to public hearing back on February 20th with very minimal conversation. But again, the applicant is here and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Triesenberg. Unless there's any objection, we'll go right to the applicant.
Hello, my
Evening.
name is Michael Palmer. I live in Apex, 8213 Henderson Road, Apex, and I am, I guess, I am the representative for Shalom Christian Church here, 309 Holloman Drive. Dr. Fuller, she is the pastor, and she is the primary applicant for the project. I wasn't sure if I was going to have to speak, but I can say a couple things really quickly. Just I think Mr. Triesenberg did a really good job of kind of outlining the idea. The reason why we're requesting the rezoning is because there's an existing church and they are currently having to convert it from a church to a daycare on Saturday, then convert it back to a daycare on Sunday night. So this rezoning would allow them to keep the existing building as a daycare and operate it as a daycare and then construct a new church facility next door on the same property. We are still in the design phase because we have to design we're going through stormwater design right now, and we have to determine how big the retention pond has to be before we can determine how much space do we have left over for the church. So that's kind of where we're at right now, but we decided to go ahead and proceed with the rezoning. We felt like rezoning it as neighborhood mixed use wouldn't hurt us, even if they decided for some reason not to proceed with the construction of a new church facility sanctuary. So we felt like it didn't really hurt us to proceed with any of this. But was there anything else that I need? Did I miss anything? Okay. She says I'm doing all right. I think the only other thing I could say is that, oh yes, the conditions. And we talked to the people at the neighborhood meeting about this also, that we specifically restricted the uses to community center, daycare, and a church. And we did that specifically to make sure that everyone understood that we were not going to be flipping the property, selling it to turn it into a car lot or an office building or anything like that. That our intention is specifically exactly what we are proposing, which is to use the existing facility as a daycare and build a new sanctuary. And that was it. That's why we only asked for, we specifically listed those two uses, three uses, church, community center, and daycare on the application. And I think that's pretty much it. I don't think I really have anything else unless you guys have questions.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments for staff or the applicant?
I have one quick question. Thank you for adding the conditions. I'm sure that the neighbors in the community appreciate that. My question would be, I rode by the property and I see that there's a daycare there. Is that the daycare? It's going to remain, that's yours?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And then, like I said, they're current, and I don't know the exact details, but at one point they were taking that building, they were having to convert the chairs and put up partition walls and having to do all this work every weekend, and it was very laborious. So at the current time, what they're doing is they plan to just keep it operating as a daycare, and that's why we decided to go ahead and proceed with and like I said, whether they, the size of the church that they build is kind of up in the air, but the daycare is pretty much what they're going to do. So we decided just to go ahead and proceed.
Yeah, I had a question, but Mr. Palmer just answered it. It was about the retention pond. The only mention I saw of the retention pond was in the notes from the meeting, and I had not seen anything about that until that point. But that's probably logical because we're just at the rezoning phase. So
That is correct, and I can say we've been working really hard because I'm not an expert necessarily. I mean, I build Chipotles. I don't really build churches. But I can say that having to weigh the size of the retention pond against how much cost, like we do underground storage and all this other stuff. There's nowhere really directly. We had to do a perk test. There's a lot that we've had to do. So we've been working on that for quite a while, and that's why we don't have more detail about what we are going to propose, because we really have to decide, or we have to figure out how much space do we have left over, and we just aren't there yet.
Thank you. Any other further questions, comments? All right. Hearing none, appreciate your time. We'll move on to public comment. If there is anyone in attendance who would like to speak in favor of the project, the microphone is yours. Seeing none, if there's anyone in attendance who would like to speak in opposition of the project, the microphone is yours. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period, brings it back to the commission, so that we have something to discuss. Is there a motion on the table?
I'll make the motion. I move that the Planning Commission accept the consistency statement herein as their own written recommendation regarding the consistency of the request with the town's adopted land use plans, and recommend approval of case number CZ 2303 to the town council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion items before we take a vote? Seeing none, I suppose we're ready for a vote.
All right, that's the motion on the floor, and I'll call the vote. Gina Avent.
Aye.
John Blasco.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
Aye.
Jefferson.
Aye.
Michael Voyland.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes 5-0. And the motion is adopted.
All right, great, thank you. Good luck with your site planning. All right, moving on to the next item on our agenda. We are done with old and new business, moving now to reports from the planning director.
All right. Sorry, I was just bringing something up. So I believe we forwarded to you that the School of Government at Chapel Hill is going to be hosting an online board workshop. This year, I think as the town attorney had noticed, they tend to rotate this every year. So one year they focus on legislative decisions, and the next year they focus more on quasi-judicial. So it happens to be that this year is the year for legislative decisions, and I believe that we are going to host here as well up in the training room, I believe. It is from 1 o'clock to 4:30, and if you can't make it here, you could also participate from your own location. We just need to know how many people to register, because each individual does have to be registered, despite us perhaps all, being in one location. So if there's any questions on that, there's several of us that could answer, but otherwise we would like to just get an indication probably in the next week or so if you think that you will be able to attend.
What was that date again?
Give me just a second here. Online is April 18. Okay. We have one for staff that we're looking at as well.
So April 18th
I heard April and
or
May.
16th?
Was it April? May. Sorry, May 16. It's the other class.
I, for one, will not be attending as my time will be almost up. Right, Philip?
You're here till June.
Almost.
John, have we set a time by which other folks, besides just the Planning Commission, we want to hear from them in order to register in time? No. So we probably could even just wait till next meeting unless there's a pressing need to register, but obviously the sooner the better.
I would encourage those who can attend to attend. It's always good to get that refresher course. So,
Well, we can send an email out in a week or two just as a reminder as well.
So it's online, or you all will have a space here?
Yes, we will be set up in the training room.
And is it 10 a.m.?
The training room,
The 10 a.m.?
I think it's 1 o'clock to 4:30.
Or 1
Yeah.
to 4:30?
We'll send out a reminder and invite again.
all right, anything else? For your, saw a thing on here for the development services software update.
Yes,
Mr. Hodges.
is going to give that.
Okay.
Good evening, Commission members. Mr. Blasco had asked if we could give an update similar to the one that we gave to Town Council recently about the development services software. While I'm bringing that up, I'll just mention that while there is an opportunity to participate in that training that Jeff just mentioned virtually, we would love to have anyone who could attend together with council members in the training room, just so that we could have group discussion and provide any additional information. It just may make for some better interaction if possible. So we'd love to ask you to consider being here if your schedules allow you to do that. So for past several years, we've been working towards automation of our development services functions here at the town. We actually started back in 2018 when council allocated some funding for us to begin this project. Throughout 2019 and 2020, we worked on evaluating software tools. 2020 with COVID, we had to really suspend those efforts while we figured out how to keep our regular processes moving through all of that. And then pick back up in 2021 in earnest with the final evaluations of software tools. And for the last 2 years, 2022 through now, have spent time with implementation of the software that we chose. It sounds like a long period of time, but we had lots and lots of processes that had to be mapped, that had to be understood well, and had to be converted into a format that we could get those entered into the new system and create the electronic processes that would follow through that. So we're very excited to announce that our portal is live. So we've got 40 different development permits that folks can use online now. 20 plus of those are reviewed by 2 or more of our departments. And a couple of those permits are things that we can set to renew annually for folks if they are something that are recurring. We've got 80 different field inspection types that our inspections team is out working, 100 plus development fees that we use through this. And then we're currently transitioning 25,000 plus records from our old databases into this system. And so our functions before this implementation were a series of databases that had been developed over time and edited and changed to meet the needs at the time. But with the growing demand for services, those were just not practical to keep using anymore. And on the right, you see just a snippet of what our portal looks like, and we can click on that in a few minutes if you'd like to see it. So we did do a slow rollout since mid-December when we turned our system on. We've been doing some final configurations. In January, we actually went live with one of our first functions, which is not a function that would really pertain to this group much, but we have a business registration function that had been a manual process that was mailed out through our finance department, encouraging local businesses to register with us so that we had their pertinent emergency contact information and so forth. We did automate that as our first use of the system. That has gone out. And then we've been working on data entry to be able to get the other functions up and running since that time. And as of the 20th of last month, all of our permits have gone live in the new system. One of the other things that we did as a part of this rollout is reorganized a lot of the information that is housed on our town's webpage, and I'll flip over there in a moment just to show you a little bit of that, but really took a look at where people are having to go to navigate to find things on the website. And while those of us that see the website on a regular basis may think, oh, it's right there for someone, over time and changes of employees and different people managing the site, things may not be the most organized as they could be for folks like yourselves or our general population and development folks who are trying to find things. So we took a time to step back and reorganize that so it would be more usable for everyone. So on the public portal side, so now folks can, anyone who's applying for a permit or any type of application, so as elaborate as a rezoning request or as simple as a fence permit for your backyard, everyone's using the same portal. Once you create an account, you can go in and access all the things that you need from your own account in the system. You can also do this 24/7, so you can do it anytime, and you can submit payment on the system as well. So it's really automating the processes that many folks are accustomed to, and then also taking some of the manual steps that our staff was doing every day and really automating those. So we also have been moving towards electronic plan review. We actually have been doing this for the last few months in anticipation of this rollout, but all of our plan review is now submitted electronically. We are evaluating it, reviewing it through a tool called Bluebeam that some of you may be familiar with, but it is the common platform that is used by all trades professionals, and so we have been doing that for some months now with some of our plans, but now all of them have gone to electronic review. This really enables our folks to give markups on the plans, send them back, and they're much easier for the people doing the applications to follow along the comments along with the plan set, so things are tracking simultaneously, and then you can track history and versions of those comments as well. Got a pretty simple set of steps to follow through for folks to go through and complete all the steps, but our development services specialist team have been trained to be able to go in and review applications to see if there's something that doesn't look exactly right, or someone may need some help in finishing all the steps to that so that they can get the applications submitted correctly. I mentioned business registrations earlier. Again, this is not as relevant to you, but for anybody who may be watching from the public, this is one of the functions that we did use the system to automate first. So we're using a licensing module, although in North Carolina we don't have business licenses, but we use the licensing module to be able to create this business registration that has to be done every year. And so this was a really big step to be able to automate this to the point that we're not having to send out the manual letters. We can send those out electronically. Folks create their account, they go in, update their information, and then they can go in at any time if they have significant changes at their businesses and hopefully keep their information even more up to date. Our fire inspections team cross-references this information when they're in the field doing fire inspections to make sure that we have folks have completed their business registrations and updated them, and that way we know that we've got good information anytime that we need it for any type of emergency. There's also a tool in the new system where you can search for development activity. If you know the parcel information or the site that you're looking for, you can enter that in and see what activity is there. This does not search quite as robustly as the online development activity map that the planning team has developed, so we will be planning to continue to update that. We hope to automate some of those updates, but we really want that other map to still be there and be very visually useful for folks who may not know the address or the PIN number of a project, but they know about where it is, or it's something they drive by every day, and you can just click on that map and access it differently. But for those of you wanting more details, or if you know the information, you can certainly access it through this system. And then into the future, what we're working on now. So we're getting everyone up and trained on this. Our field inspectors are using this tool on tablets out in the field, doing their building inspections through it. So really taking this automation all the way from start to finish of projects. And now we're working on enhancing the reporting that is built into the system. We'll be building out some additional reports that we think will be useful to Planning Commission, to council, and to the citizens in general. And then our long-term goal is to create some customized reports and maybe a dashboard tool that we can use for this information to feed into. So stay tuned for that. So out into the future, we're looking to expand the use of this. We're already looking at other things within the town that we can use this to do, much like business registration was not originally a part of what we were looking to automate. We found that it's a useful tool for that. So we'll be looking for additional things that our staff spends time using manual processes to do, like ordering additional trash cans. You wouldn't think that amounts to a whole lot, but when you have to take a phone call and pass that information off to one or two other people and get that into a different system, it adds up over time. So anywhere we can automate those processes, road closure permits, animal licenses are all things that we're looking to automate with this system. We do have a code enforcement module in this software, but it does not fully integrate and do everything that our Garner Info app currently does. So we're going to be using it in the background to keep track of all of our code enforcement activity, but it's not going to replace Garner Info at this time. Our hope is that we might in the future have a new tool that we can roll out, but we're still encouraging people to use Garner Info, and when needed, we'll move those cases over into code enforcement so that we can have a more robust database for those. And as mentioned on the slide, there's just a larger discussion about how to replace a tool that is used by as many people in town as we can convince to use it, and also it has workflows that go out to most every department in the town, so a much bigger undertaking to evaluate. And then also, as we've been rolling out this software, SmartGov has been purchased by another company. And the unique thing about this is it's been purchased by a company called garnernc, and garnernc is the provider of software primarily to municipalities, and so they actually are the company that our website is hosted by. So coincidentally for us, it now gives us a couple of things hosted by the same company, and one of the really that we think strong things about that is their focus is primarily on local government technology, whereas the company that had SmartGov before did a lot of things in a lot of different sectors. And so this actually will probably in the long run benefit us and their other customers to be able to tie those services together. So stay tuned for any additional things that we can do to enhance this tool as well as our website under one ownership. So that's a quick overview. There's a little more detailed overview if you really are interested in it that you can watch back on the February 27th meeting. Goes into a lot more detail about actually using the system on the back end. We'll be glad to share any more detail that y'all would like to have, but we thought this might be a good overview for you tonight just to understand where we are in the process and what people will be able to do with the system. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that I can.
All right, great. Thank you. That was a great presentation. I think it looks like a great piece of software that will hopefully make lives easier for you, but also for the development community as well. So
very good. Well, and the comment about the presentation, make sure we thank some people and give credit there. While I came and gave you the presentation tonight, our special projects manager, Mari Howe, created the presentation you saw, but also led our entire team through this 2-year process. All of our department heads, Jeff and Leah and Paul, our inspections director, were all heavily participating in this along with their staffs, along with the rest of their day job that they had to do. Sometimes it was tough to carve out the time to get all this done, but we appreciate all of them for carving that time out. In addition, Paul Padgett, our inspections director, took on even a little additional role in helping make sure that all the workflows that crossed over between departments really crossed over correctly and looked at that from a higher level. And then now we appreciate our staff who are frontline every day at the front counter and on the telephone helping people figure out how to use this, and are now out doing building inspections when they're very accustomed to a big roll of plans, and now they're doing all that on technology. So a big thank you and appreciation to our staff who's been working on this for a couple of years. All right.
great. Thank you. Any questions or comments? We appreciate it. Anything else from you, Jeff? Or
Just briefly, please. Today, I would like to introduce you to Erin Joseph. This is her first time at Planning Commission. We hired her just shortly after our last one. So Erin, I don't know if you want to come up and just say a few words, but she comes to us from the town of Benson, and we are very glad to have her here as the Assistant Planning Director.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. It's very nice to meet you all this evening. I am very excited about joining the town of Garner. I'm looking forward to working with you all and to be heavily involved with the growth that is happening in Garner. So I'm very pleased and I thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good things about you from folks, so.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Very much. There you go.
That is it.
All right. Anything from the commission? Nothing. I did have one thing. If it would be possible, doesn't have to be tonight, maybe the next meeting, but in light of some emails that have been sent to Planning Commission and council about just how Garner develops and the character of Garner, it would be nice maybe if there was some discussion about what our role is, or maybe not our role, but our what we're allowed to do and not to do in terms of architectural quality, what the state legislature allows planning commissions to regulate. There's been a lot of discussion lately about, especially with those two recent projects from last month, about the quality of architecture. And I know that we're somewhat limited, but a refresher would be, I think, or a reminder would be appreciated.
So, I mean, I can just respond to that real briefly, and we can prepare something a little more in depth for next month, or just a little one-page handout type thing. It's an interesting kind of setup. Technically, state legislation, we cannot, as a town, mandate architectural conditions for any single family, two family, and now they've expanded it to 3 family and 4 family. Anything that's treated under the building code by I guess it's currently called the 1 and 2 family, but I don't know if they're going to change it now that they've added 3 and 4. Those are exempted from being able to mandate. So that's why you don't see much of anything in our UDO related to that. We do have architectural standards, but it's for everything else. That being said, folks do quite often have to come for a rezoning. And that's the opportunity that you have to kind of discuss these things. At the end of the day, it does have to be a condition that the applicant volunteers. How we get to that volunteering, it definitely is an open discussion. And so, yeah, that's where that comes from. At the end of the day, we can suggest and we can recommend, and then it's up to the applicant if they want to proceed with or without certain architectural conditions, and then ultimately it's up to the council. So, most communities, I think, are fairly successful in engaging in those conversations, and I would say that most residential developers don't find it unusual, particularly here in the Triangle. But that was something that did come about somewhere in the middle of my tenure in Nightdale, because we used to have, when I was in Nightdale, when we rewrote our UDO, we had architectural conditions, and then that was the legislature. So this is probably about 14 years ago or so that the legislature took that action. Does that?
Yeah, I think that helps. That definitely helps. So if we have a scenario where there's a case in front of us, from a planning perspective, it makes sense. It matches. It's consistent with the comp plans, consistent with a lot of things. But maybe the architecture that they show in the renderings is unappealing for whatever reason. If we were to vote to deny that based on the architecture, would that be kosher? Would that be something? I mean, because I think, that's some of the discussion that revolved around the Park at Garner station, or whatever it was called last month, and in terms of, you know, what is the architecture? Is it appealing? Is it in character with a lot of different things? But
I believe, and I'll invite Terry if she wants to say anything extra, but I believe that she would advise you that that you don't want to be basing your decision on that, because that's what will get you caught up.
that's kind of what I figured. I just wanted to put that out there for everybody. So that's definitely been a topic of conversation for some time, and
Yeah.
especially with our concerned residents.
And you know, and the good thing is we do have some of that written into the comp plan, which is, you know, again, it's more of an advisory document. It's not the rule book, but it does give these folks an idea of what it is that Garner is looking for. So it should help them craft some of those conditions to voluntarily put forward. But yeah, if there's specific things, you know, we take note, they take note. They know, for instance, I've had several people comment, you know, about Philip, your comment about 12-inch overhangs. You know, that may seem very minutia detail, but the things that you talk about do get noticed and heard. So definitely encourage you to keep mentioning those things. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I think you could make the same example over vinyl siding. That was a common thing, and over the course of a year and a half, it sort of disappeared, not because we said no, but because of we suggested other things, or, you know, it was the comment process. It wasn't, we weren't basing our vote on it, but it was and it gets heard. So takes time, but gets there. Okay. No, that's helpful. That's what I wanted to discuss tonight. I don't think we need a follow-up necessarily, unless you all think there's something that was missed, but okay. Well, that is all I had this evening. Anything else? Nope. All right. With that, we will adjourn.